Pretentious prog reviewer face and go! That was pretty bad. What's going on, coverkillernation? How's everything going? How are you today? I am doing very well. We're going to be talking about a band who is making their CKN channel debut today. However, before we get into that, there's a couple of things that I want to tell each and every one of you, and that's the fact that you can follow me, coverkillernation, and the nation, and have discussions and comments and all sorts of fun, both on Facebook and Twitter. But now I also want to reintroduce the blog. That's going to be in the description box below you, so definitely check out that link, and that gets updated. It's been updated about once a month. Before this, I'm going to try to do so a little more frequently. I had it primarily just for the 24 hours of CKN that happened back in June, but that is going to become a full-scale blog from this point forward. So let's talk about this up-and-coming United Kingdom, Oxford-based progressive band. They're entitled Prospekt, and the album that we're talking about today is their first full-length, which just came out in October, and it is entitled The Colourless Sunrise. Now, I say it came out in October. They are getting some other releases here in early November, so this is a new release. Now, this is a group that has a wide array of different influences, bands such as Dream Theater, Opeth, Circus Maximus, film scores, and soundtracks, different things and ideas like that, which definitely just brings together a whole wealth of different inspirations that could be drawn upon whenever it comes to what they're able to do with their music. And their music you could easily classify as progressive metal. I mean, this is very, very simple. But if you really want to get very, very cut and dry about it, if you want to get very, descriptive about it, you could give this a little bit of a symphonic edge at some moments. However, I would term it a little bit more toward the technical side and a little bit more toward the classic side, because this has fantastic virtuosity. It has vocals that have reminded some fans that I have spoken to a little bit of the 1980s, a little bit of the earliest roots of the power and progressive scene. And I state that specifically because you can definitely hear a bit of a vocal influence from bands such as Halloween, and that's definitely not a bad role classification or a bad reference point to really have for this group. And we're going to get a little bit more on the overall musicality of this band very shortly. Now, this is a 9-track album, and it's definitely got its variants. There are 3 tracks on here that are close to or exceeding the 10-minute mark. I say close to because The Great Awakening, unfortunately, falls 4 seconds short of the 10-minute mark. But for all intents and purposes, let's just say that there are 3 tracks on here that eclipse the 10-minute mark. So there are plenty of opportunities for these guys to really showcase the magnitude of what they are able to do and the full plethora of their abilities. Now, the first thing that you notice whenever you begin this album with a track entitled Desolate Kingdom is that the vocals definitely have all the tinge of the 1980s and traditional progressive metal that you have probably heard from bands such as Dream Theater in the early days with their original singer, and also through some other groups that you may have heard throughout the 1990s. Enchants is probably one that had the vocalization a little bit more refined. However, there are a lot of other bands that certainly have showcased this more gruff and imperfect vocal edge, which is something that certainly gives them a little bit of an imperfect twinge. However, the one thing that you're going to notice almost immediately is the musicality. The musicality that's present on this album is absolutely top-notch. It has all the fantastic bearings and the opportunities to be just a tremendous, tremendous prog act. The guitar work on this album is top-notch. The keys blending with the guitar definitely gives it a nice edge, and the drumming is no slouch either, as well as the bass. So basically, now that we've covered just about everything that you can talk about musically, let's talk about some things a little bit more specifically. Now, the technical edge on this album is definitely more so in the fact that there is just some tremendous soloing and some very strange signature changes. Now, there is one moment on here where really some people, I'm just going to say some people, may say that they've taken a bit of a gent edge to it. Either that or an edge of, kind of a place where there could be a little bit of pitting, like it's some sort of deathcore breakdown, but it's really not it. It's just something that's guiding along the melody. It's something that's continuing onward with what the music is kind of doing. It's advancing to the next musical idea. It's on the second track, Dissonant Priests, I believe, if I recall correctly. But it is certainly something that is present, and certainly something that may cause a little bit of contention if people are really willing to nitpick. And I'm not really willing to nitpick. One thing that I do like is that in Eternal Memories, we get a couple of different clips from important moments in recent American history that have been kind of affected by not only tragedy, but also success. We first start with the moon landing, and then we get to the assassination of former United States President John F. Kennedy, and then, of course, the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and, of course, the failed attempt that landed actually just one county over from me in Pennsylvania. And this goes right into Shroud, which is just a fantastic number. But whenever we get to the title track, the Colourless Sunrise, we see the full plethora of approach. And once again, with the longer tracks, I love these because they're able to kind of space out their ideas, and they're able to really dedicate a lot more attention and focus to really just linking everything together and making very, very focused cuts. Strangely enough, though, even with all of that said, one of the best tracks on here is The Great Awakening, which clocks in a couple seconds short of 10 minutes, and then goes right into Shutter Asylum, which is also very, very good. This is where really the virtuosity starts to showcase itself, and it really shows it in a big way. These guys are still a band that is very, very much pretty new to the scene. I mean, they've only been on the scene for a couple of years, and they're already showcasing that they have a wide array of talents. I also apologize for the background noise. Lots going on over here. I feel like I'm in a construction site. However, to really use the construction site metaphor, this is certainly a work that is building itself with each subsequent release. This is certainly something that's going to build itself with each release that follows this one. It's going to continue to grow in magnitude, and they're going to be able to add a little bit more to their dynamic sound, and hopefully they'll be able to do that with a fan base that is really going to appreciate what they've done already, because this is a very, very good album. The only minor complaint that I may have about this disc is really nitpicky, but it is something that I do need to mention. The vocals on this album, they are solid. However, whenever you listen to the musicality that surrounds it, it does sound like the outlier. It sounds like the one element of this release that is perhaps not at 100% or not top-notch. And this is no slouch or no slam or no punch in the face to the vocalist of this group, principally because this style of vocals works with the music. It's just something that sounds rough around the edges every so often, and to be honest, on most tracks whenever that occurs, it sounds as though it really deserves to be there. At other times, though, perhaps it's just my ear just not following or not really being, in tune with it. However, I am not saying that they need a new singer, because they certainly don't. The pipes on this gentleman are very, very good. He does have a dynamic range, and he has also showcased on tracks like Visions that he does have that range and is willing to show it. So overall, for an album such as this, something that literally I selected because I wanted to try something brand spanking new and just went for it, I gotta say, I'm really fucking impressed. And I really, if I would have passed this up, I probably would have been kicking myself, because this has just a great, great stamp put on it by the overall body of work. I have to give it an 8 out of 10. I really do. This is definitely a debut worth checking out. This is definitely one I encourage individuals to attend to. And this is one that's going to be a little bit heavier, so if you're a prog rock typically only junkie, this may be a little bit too heavy for you, but heaviness is good. Accept it, embody it. It's certainly an element of prog that does give it a little bit more dynamisy. And this is a band that, as they continue to expand their repertoire and continues to build a jar of tricks, they're going to be able to show that dynamisy a little bit more and perhaps showcase a lot more intimacy. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget once again to check out the blog, like and subscribe. Tell this to all of your friends. Tell it to everybody. We want this nation to be the biggest nation in the world, regardless of what Google and YouTube has done to the comment system. I'll talk to you guys later. And pretentious prog faces for the outro. That one sucked worse.